Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the mob. Thank you guys all for being here. Today we have very special guests with us. We have Miss PA Alyssa Bainbridge with us. We're so excited to have her here to talk about the work she's doing as Miss PA. Before we get in and we allow her to introduce herself, I just want to remind everyone of our programs we have here at Roots Living Ministry. We have our food pantry every second and fourth Saturdays of the month, our NAMI Connections group every second and fourth Fridays of the month, and our NAMI family support groups every first and third Monday of the month. If you go onto our website, all the information is there, how to get in contact with us and how to get the help that you need. So please do so. Alyssa, thank you so much for being with us. Can tell the viewers a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Sure. So Miss Pennsylvania is part of the Miss America organization. So I'll compete for the title of Miss America in a few months. But, that's the part that everyone sees and kind of knows about, but they don't know about all of these other things that I get to do as Miss Pennsylvania. And, I'm a brand ambassador for the Miss America organization. I'm out, recruiting candidates, recruiting sponsorships for our organization. But I'm also advocating for causes that I'm passionate about. We have what's called a social impact initiative. And for me, it's called Tyler's Triumph, the More Than Project. And I am dedicating my year as Miss Pennsylvania to serving and empowering people who live with mental health and substance use disorders. So
Wow.
I go all around the state, sharing my story, educating people of all ages about mental health and substance use disorder and how to speak about mental health and substance use disorder with compassion and without stigma. And, we'll get in later, I'm sure, more about why that's such a passion of mine and why I do what I do. But, that's something that not a lot of people know about Miss Pennsylvania is a large chunk of my year is spent out in the community on the ground doing this work for an issue that I'm extremely passionate about.
That's really amazing. And you're right. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that prior to knowing about you, but I think it's very admirable. And so I think, like most people, and I was telling you this before, my only knowledge about pageantry is really like Toddlers and Tiara from like TLC.
Yeah,
But I know, I'm
I get
sure.
that a lot.
I'm sure it's not like that. I want to know a little bit, how'd you get into pageantry and, why has it become so important to you?
Sure. So I always say I was kind of born into pageantry. My mom did pageants,
Oh,
and
wow.
then she actually ran a pageant the entire time
Mm.
that I was alive. Since before I was born, she was running this pageant. So from the time I was born, I was surrounded by women who I just thought were so extraordinary in everything they did. And I wanted to be just like them. And I saw everything that they were gaining from doing pageants, the confidence, the scholarship opportunities, the
Yeah.
doors and networking opportunities that it was opening for their careers. And I wanted that. So, I started just doing little festival pageants when I was 5. And then, when I was 15, I decided I was ready to jump into Miss America. That was always
Oh.
my holy grail. I met Miss Pennsylvania when I was 9 years old for the first time. And I told my mom that day, I will be Miss Pennsylvania one day. I want to
Wow.
go to Miss America. I want to be her. And she made me believe that I could do it, that Miss Pennsylvania that I met. And so, after several tries, many years in the program, I was Miss Pennsylvania's Outstanding Teen in 2016. And took me 4 tries, but now here I am living my childhood dream as Miss Pennsylvania on my way to Miss America.
And so I'm a little curious as to like what does it take to like be Miss Pennsylvania? It's not, I mean, you're a very beautiful person, but I know it's not just that. So what does it take to like, win a pageant in that sense?
Well, a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
So many people, don't see the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. And it's not just preparing for that one night of competition. Yes, we're doing things like practicing our talent and
Yeah.
we're doing mock interviews and keeping up with current events so that we're able to, compete and be our best selves during that competition night.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really about, building yourself to be the best title holder that you would be. And so much of the work is preparing for that job of a title holder because Miss Pennsylvania is a job.
Yeah.
I'm going pretty much every day. I have maybe one day off a week, but
Right.
I'm always traveling. I'm out meeting people, talking to people constantly. And so I think just that journey of finding yourself and being comfortable in yourself to be able to do a job like that, being flexible,
Yeah.
being tenacious, knowing that it's not always going to go your way and you're going to have to work hard for things and overcome things. But it's just hard work
Yeah.
all around on yourself to get here and to be a title holder in the Miss America organization.
Wow, it's pretty amazing. I know, based on your website, which will be in the description if you want to know a little bit more about Miss PA and some of the work she's doing, it will be in the description so you can learn more. But I saw some of your social impact initiative, which was called the More Than Project, right?
Sure.
So we know that based on the website, it supports people with mental illness. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you do support people with mental illness?
Sure. So my social impact has really evolved in the
Yeah.
time. I started it when I was 15. That's when I first became a mental health advocate, and it's evolved so much. But what's always been the very core of my message is letting people know that they are so much more than
Yeah.
a mental illness or their struggle. And that's why I called it the More Than Project. It
Wow.
started when I was 15 as mostly a hashtag on social media and a social media campaign. Um, and it was me sharing about my two siblings who, at the time, both lived with bipolar disorder
Yeah.
and some other mental health struggles. And I shared on social media the things that I loved about my siblings that made them so much more than their illness, and the fact that these were the things I saw them as and not their
Wow.
illness. And that's how I wanted everyone to see people with mental health disorders. And my brother said to me one time, he lived with bipolar his whole life, and he developed a substance use disorder as a means of self-medicating for the untreated symptoms of his bipolar, and went down this really long battle with addiction. And we actually lost him to an overdose back in 2018. But shortly before that, he looked at me and he said to me that he just felt he was no more than an addict. His life was worth nothing more than his addiction. And was he even worthy of recovery? Because all he was this addiction. And that broke my heart. And that became my core mission and purpose, was to directly empower people who might be feeling that same way, and being that person to look at them and tell
Yeah.
them that I believe in them, that they are worthy of recovery, that they are loved, and that they are so much more than their mental illness. And so it really just took off from there, especially since losing my brother. I started this nonprofit organization in his memory called Tyler's Triumph. And I kind of just took the advocacy to the next level. I am educating people about mental health, from school kids to adults. I'm
Yeah.
educating them about how to take care of their mental health, and especially how to dismantle that stigma within ourselves and be sure we're speaking about mental illness and addiction in ways that are compassionate and not with that stigma.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we also work to raise money to directly support people who are on their journey to recovery, whether it be through scholarships to live in recovery houses or to go back to school. We really want to meet people where they are and help give them the tools to be able to thrive in recovery long term.
First, I just want to say condolences, towards your brother, but it's really admirable. I resonate a lot with that. We started Roots very similarly. My dad had a very similar, situation, bipolar that wasn't untreated, and then he started self-medicating throughout most of my childhood with heroin, and that kind of spurred on my own mental health issues afterwards. And so, we got to recovery in a place, where we healed. And kind of similarly to you, I think, we were like, man, like if I understand it now, like I want other people to understand this in the hopes that we save more people and, we help people become restored and really become who they are. You know what I mean? It's sad when a disease like addiction or mental illness, like you said, it takes away from who the person is or makes them see themselves as only that, because we're so much more than just
Exactly.
the illness. And I really really love that. I love the more than name. I think that's really cool. I'm sure from your experiences, you've had challenges, you know what I mean? Dealing, as a family member of someone with a mental illnesses, there are challenges to supporting someone like that. Um, we have a NAMI, in partnership with NAMI, we do our NAMI family support group for Monroe County. And it's all about, family members of people with mental illness coming together to learn how we can support ourselves and how can we support the people, that need it, in our families. Also, how to take care of ourselves while we're supporting them. Um, in your experience, what support do people need as they're supporting their family members with mental illness?
Sure. And that's a great question because I think the families, and I found especially the siblings are often forgot about in this. There's so
Yeah.
many support groups out there for parents of kids who might be struggling with mental illness, but there wasn't a lot out there for siblings. And I know from my perspective, and this is only kind of an epiphany I've had recently about myself, is as a family member and for me as a sibling of two people who lived with mental illness and just were going through these really severe struggles, I put such a pressure on myself growing up to be perfect
Yeah.
because I didn't want to be an added stress for my parents. I didn't want to give my parents, another person to worry about. And so I just felt the need to always be perfect and kind of bottle up my own emotions so that I didn't burden my parents or the other people supporting my siblings. And of course, so that I didn't, add to my siblings' mental health struggles, having to worry about me in a way that I worry about them.
Yeah.
And so I think that just the support, we need the mental health support too, right? I have struggled with my mental health. We
Yeah.
all do, realizing that it's natural and it's okay.
Yeah.
Even at times, I was afraid to talk about how I was feeling and about my struggles, not necessarily because I thought I'd be judged, because I felt like I had to be the strong one and I didn't want to add more burden to my family. And I'm sure that that has to be a way that a lot of other family members are feeling. So I encourage those people, if you are in that situation, to not be afraid to admit first to yourself and to others that you might need the help and support as well. And, go seek out therapy, seek out groups. There's so many groups on Facebook, or I know NAMI has great family support
Yeah.
groups. And it has been really just revitalizing for me, especially in this role, as I come across so many people and even siblings who can relate to my story and loving someone who might be struggling with their mental health and the toll that it can take on them. So seek out those people because you're not alone. And
Yeah.
if you're feeling that way, there are bound to be other people that feel that way. And it took me a long time myself to be able to admit um, my own struggles, but be vulnerable in that way and know that it doesn't burden anyone, but
Yeah.
if anything, it will help people to feel less alone and to feel more empowered in this.
I definitely got goosebumps as you were speaking because the way you described it, like word for word, I can remember feeling as a child that way. You know what I mean? Like that feeling of I don't want to say anything because we've got enough problems as it is. Like why would I add another stress? And then not
Right.
realizing as I got into a teenager, I got my diagnosis right after graduating high school, and my senior year was just the worst of it. You know what I mean? It was terrible because it was just 18 years of bottled up emotions that just started pouring out uncontrollably. Because I never took the time to tell
Right.
someone, I need to speak to someone, I need to tell them how I feel, I need probably some counseling or something like that. But yeah, no, I got goosebumps because you said it. Like I felt the chills down my back, and so I know people are gonna resonate with that feeling, and I hope as you guys are listening that you understand that there's a lot of people going through this situation. I mean, statistically in America, 1 in 5 people experience mental
So
illness.
many.
There's 20% of people in America, meaning there's a whole bunch of family members that are also affected by this, and we're not alone in this situation. So I love that you're advocating for something that despite the fact so many people are going through it, there's such a stigma attached to it. You know what I mean? And that's such a like weird thing to kind of think about. It's like, why are we all so ashamed of something that we're all kind of going through? If we were to come together, we'd see
I
that
know.
there was nothing to be quiet about. We could relate to one
I
another.
know. And even, I've been talking about this for years.
Yeah.
Since I was 15, I've been preaching about mental health, and it was still hard for me to be able to admit, that I have serious anxiety sometimes, and I
Hmm.
have struggled, and realizing truly, like, it was coming out of my mouth, but it's only been recently that I truly realized that that is okay.
Yeah.
Even the people that might appear perfect, like they have these great lives, they struggle. It is normal. And the only way we're going to make it more normal and keep people from feeling that this is all consuming and that it defines them is by all of us being
Yeah.
vulnerable and talking about it.
I love that. I really do. Nami, you said it before, with support groups and counseling. Nami also offers a lot of, for the viewers that are listening, a lot of educational classes. We have this one class called
Hmm.
Family to Family, in which you learn about, general mental illnesses. So from depression to bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, personality disorders. So you get like a kind of a gist of it. But then they also teach you how to self care. You know what I mean? How to take some time away from
Hmm.
yourself and, deal with those anxieties and those stressors in your life. It teaches you what language to use to, family members that may have mental illness. Using
Exactly.
like a first person, like person first language, instead of calling them a client or an addict or, whatever that, we call them by their name because that's who they are, and they're so
Hmm.
much more than that. And so there's an abundant amount of resources out there. So kudos to you, because I think the hardest part is not that we don't have the resources all the time, but they're disconnected from the people who need them. And so sometimes they need someone to tell them, like, hey, I've been there, and this is what helped me. This may also help you. And just the hope of seeing
Right.
someone, get through it is a lot for people. So I think, yeah, that's super great. I love that you're advocating uh, for those reasons. I wanted to ask, right, because we know November is coming up. We're getting right into October now, and so it'll be no time until elections come up. And um, locally is, it's super important to, vote locally on the state level as well. What supports do you think, for those affected by mental illness, can we advocate for on local and state levels?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much.
Yeah,
As we all know, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast know that it is not easy to get mental health care and get it quickly.
yeah,
And, I'm not a politician, I'm not a legislator. I don't know exactly what those solutions might be to make the process
yeah,
of finding mental health care, of getting in with a psychiatrist and with a therapist, of speeding up that process and making sure it's accessible to everyone. I don't have all the answers for that, but I absolutely think it needs to be at the forefront of conversation, and we
yeah,
need to be looking for solutions to that, because like you said, this is 1 in 5 people in our country, and
yeah,
this isn't anything new, but especially right now at this time in our country, coming out of the pandemic, more people are struggling than ever before, and I think it's harder to get yourself mental health care than ever before, and it needs to be addressed,
yeah,
and it needs to be prioritized. And of course, education. I believe that mental health education should be a required course in all public school systems from the time you're in elementary school until the time you graduate. We need to be accurately,
mm-hmm,
teaching kids about mental health and how to take care of their mental health, and kind of getting it into their brains from an early age that this is just as important as physical health. And here's what to do if you're feeling mentally unhealthy. So, on the mental health side of things, I think that's important. And then,
yeah,
of course, the opioid crisis and addiction, I've found, is a whole other beast. And there's a lot of legislation being proposed, even here in Pennsylvania
yeah,
right now, to, kind of decriminalize harm reduction and addiction and, legalize fentanyl test strips amidst this fentanyl crisis that we're now experiencing, people who aren't even in addiction on the street,
Yeah.
coming in contact with fentanyl and dying. There's so much that needs to be done on that end of things. But I think just in general, these issues need to be at the forefront of conversations for this election because unfortunately it is all becoming more and more relevant. The
Yeah.
mental health crisis in our country, the opioid crisis in our country, if you ask me, I feel those are two of the most pressing issues in our country right now. And so I encourage people that when you are going to vote, make sure you do your research on a candidate and their platforms and where they stand on these issues, especially if it's something that affects you personally or a family member, or if it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah, I love that you said that, mental health being on the forefront of, the issues. And it's true. I mean, we look at our own lives when our mental health starts to deteriorate little by little, you can start seeing other aspects of our life start to fall as well. Maybe you're not as focused in school or at work, and that can lead to issues in your home life. And it's kind of like a domino effect. And I think if we put more effort into making sure our community's mental health are well, you'll start to see the community bounce back from a lot of, the adversaries we face. Um,
Right.
I I just wanted to ask you one more question on that on your on the More Than project. Is there what kind of plans do you
Sure.
guys have, for the future? Is it, I see that you're very passionate about them, advocating for mental health and, having supports for people with mental illness. Is this something you guys plan to expand? What kind of plans for the future do you see for the More Than project?
Sure. So I will always have this platform, well past my year as Miss Pennsylvania, or if I am blessed enough to become Miss America, this will just always be a part of my life. And I
Yeah.
hope to just continue building on, especially, the nonprofit side of my social impact initiative. And one thing we really want to do, right now we're really focusing on the education piece while I have this platform as Miss Pennsylvania to get into schools and
Yeah.
things like that. So I'm really focusing on the education. I even started just recently a More Than Stigma pledge. And so when I go into schools, I have the entire class take a pledge to be stigma free. And
Wow.
we kind of talk about, what that means and how to talk about mental health without stigma. So education is really a large focus of mine right now, but in the future, I really see us, becoming an organization that is providing that direct support to people in recovery, giving them scholarships. My family and I have even talked about opening up our own recovery house one day. We
Wow.
would love to open a recovery house here in our hometown, named after my brother, and just, really be right on the forefront of helping people. So that's where I see this going. I always see myself being an advocate and sharing this story
Yeah.
in any arena that someone will let me.
Wow. That's amazing. Before we go, right? Because I think you answered everything that I had to ask about. Your More Than project and the work that you're doing, and I hope that people that are listening, they tune in into what you're doing and become more supportive of that as well. You told me you were going for Miss America now. So can you tell me a little bit about more about, when's that's happening and how we can support you, Miss BA, to become Miss America?
Sure. So we don't have a date for Miss America yet. As of right now, we believe it's in December at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So they haven't announced anything quite yet about tickets to that or anything. But once the time comes around, there will be an America's Choice voting. So you'll be able to go online and vote for your favorite candidate. You'll be able to stream Miss America, whether it be on TV or online. You can support me in that way. But even just by following me on social media, I always appreciate that. Give me a follow, drop me a comment, especially if you're someone who can relate, if you're a mental health advocate, if you struggle with your mental health, reach out, let me know because I love to hear these stories. And every story I hear just helps me to be a better advocate for people and what they need.
That's amazing. You guys heard it. Please go on her social media, because if you're on her social media, you're going to be updated for everything. I'm sure she'll have when the voting comes, and we need to vote for Miss PA. Okay, everyone, rally around
Yes, it'll be on
Pennsylvanians.
there.
And
And
not
I'm
just
at Miss America PA
at Miss America PA. We'll have all the links to her
on all
social media
platforms.
and Facebook on our description there. And just not because, of course, the beautiful Miss PA is here with us, but her message, the work that you're doing, it is so important. Here in Pennsylvania, we're one of the states so deeply affected by the opioid crisis and, the mental health crisis we have here. Um, a lot, we're in Monroe County here, our fentanyl overdose rates just skyrocketed within the last couple years, and it's pretty sad, and this is something that affects us, and so we want to support people that are fighting for us the community, you know what I mean, to see something better.
Hmm.
I'm in my 20s now. I don't have any children. Hopefully within the next 10 years or so I will, but I'd want them to come into a community that we're conscious about mental health, that we're conscious about people needing support. And so to do that, we have to support people that are advocating for it right now. So please do get on her social medias. You're already on Facebook watching or on YouTube. So all you have to do is just click the link and give her a follow, and you'll be updated, I'm sure, of when the dates come out, when you can vote, and how you can support her. Alyssa, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Just thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I want to share my story anywhere and everywhere that I can in the hopes that even if just one person who needs to hear it hears it. So I just want to speak to those people. If you're feeling like your struggle is defining you and consuming you, and you feel you are no more than your diagnosis or whatever you're going through, I want to be the one to tell you right here and right now that you are so much more than that. You are a person first. You are loved. You are worthy of everything, and recovery will find you. It is possible. So hold on and keep fighting, and know that there is someone, and I'm sure lots of other people who believe in you. And do not be afraid to go to those people and pour into them.
Oh, thank you for that message, Alyssa. Um, Again, everyone, links in the description. Go on to Roots Living Ministry if you need any local resources. We will be with you all next Monday with Applegate Recovery, actually, learning about a new office that opened up here in Monroe County in Blakesley. They are a medication assisted treatment center. So that'll be really great to learn about their resources as well. Alyssa, thank you again so much for being with us. And
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
we will see you all next time.